Hey everybody, this is Andrew Hendryx for Vintage Guitar Magazine. Thanks for spending your Sunday with us. Today we're going to look at some chords and work on some of my favorite chord shapes, or at least chord shapes I've spent a lot of time thinking about over the years. So right now I'm playing my Gibson F4 mandolin. This is my first real mandolin here, bought from Acoustic Music George Youngblood Workshop in Guilford, Connecticut, and that's a really pretty instrument, kind of harp-like sound. And then soon I'm going to switch over to my Collings MF5 for a completely different sound. All right, so I was thinking about some things I work on with my students, and one thing I was thinking about for today was just exploring some of the shapes we already know. So not necessarily getting into some really complicated shapes that are really stretching your fingers, but maybe looking at some things that we know and really pushing those boundaries just a little bit, or at least exploring the potential in them. So let's look at just our G or G7 chord. Now, this is a really simple chord. Most mandolinists, this is the first thing they learn. I'm just playing the B natural on the A string and the G on the 3rd fret of the E. Now this alone is a really cool chord. But so for that I'm using my first finger and my second finger. Now this shape, if you can jump it to the middle 2 strings and for a C chord, onto low 2 strings for an F. Now, by changing your fingering on this chord, we can get to some different notes and really add some different color to this pretty simple chord. So let's see an example of that. I'm actually changing. So I'm just keeping my first and second finger right here. And I'm going to use my pinky on the chart here, this G major scale. You can grab over at vintageguitar.com. Now I'm just going to use my pinky, keeping that chord, my 3rd finger and my pinky, and I'm going to hit that 3rd and 4th degree of the major scale on the 4th fret and the 5th fret to add a sus chord to this basic chord shape. So let's kind of check that out. So just by keeping this chord shape, if I use my pinky, I can make it a sus chord by hitting that 4th degree of the scale. Which, I'm just riffing on a rhythm there, but you can do a lot with that finger picking. Now, what happens if we change our fingering on that and use our second and third degree, our second and third finger of the same chord shape? Now, this enables me to grab some different notes on the bass string. So I'm basically right now just grabbing some bass notes, the root, the ninth, maybe the flat third, major third, perfect fourth, maybe sharp fourth, perfect fifth, sixth, major seventh, maybe that flat seventh. We'll see. But because I've changed the fingerings out of this basic fingerings, now I can grab this ninth note in the bass, which kind of has an interesting sound. So let's check that out. So now I can still use that pinky. It's a little harder to grab, but I can still get that fourth degree of the scale right there by changing your hand. So basically what I'm doing is just trying to really dig deep into this shape. Trying to think about, there's this really amazing trumpeter named Ingrid Jensen that I was lucky to study with in college, and she sort of got me hip to this idea of just really exploring something you know, instead of trying to, I was young and trying to learn all this like really esoteric stuff, and that really was pretty eye-opening for me back in the day. So let's do a few more of those here. You'll kind of get the idea. So I'm just taking these notes of the major scale. I'm just adding them to this chord progression and switching my fingerings, right? So looking at that third, let's look at these fingerings again. So I have this major third here, and the root. Now, if I use that second and third finger for this, I can play that minor third, and I can kind of slide between the minor third and major third just by using my middle finger, right? So that's a pretty cool sound. And you can also do this stuff by playing the minor chord, by using your first finger on the first fret to get the B flat. Now we can just, instead of the major scale in our bass line, we can play some form of the minor scale. So let's see how that sounds. Alright, so you kind of get that idea. Now it's just sliding around using that middle finger. Now, you can also just take off that first finger to make that a ninth chord. This is really beautiful. I use this quite a bit. All right, so in my introduction, I was just riffing a little bit on the next chord here on the sheet, which is our sharp 9 chord. I think this is we all kind of hear that there's another Hendryx that's a pioneer of this chord, and this is just an awesome chord, and this is just based off of hitting that flat sharp 9 or flat third, that B flat, with our pinky. So I'm playing the root, the F, third fret of the D, and the B natural. And that tension between the flat third and the major third is really pretty hit. So this is actually a very easy chord voicing to play here in G, and I'm just hitting that bass string. Now this shape you can take you can move it down to C. Actually just move it all over the fingerboard. But it sounds really nice in C and G right there. Really like that. You can just take your pinky and move it down and create a 9th chord with that flat 9. Excuse me, with a natural 9, which is also really cool. So really, I'm just keeping that melody note with my pinky and just moving down a half step to the 5th fret of that E. So we have now for these chords right now, I've been dropping this root in basically all these G chords. Right, but we can we don't need that root to be up in the bass note, and that's actually probably bassists will appreciate that. So especially if we're not kind of in their world. So what we with our low notes, so what we can do is take the 3rd and the 7th of the chord and make some interesting chord shapes. So what I'm going to do is take put that B natural on the 4th fret of the G and the F natural on the 3rd fret of the D. And I'm going to play my 4th example of just a G. This is actually a G7 chord. So it's 4, 3, 5, 3. Now this is a great chord because it puts the melody note, the G, on the top. So it sounds really great if you're going to play a chord melody. Now if we want to change that melody note, we have our pinky that is free to play that sharp 9 that we used in that last chord. So where we can try to squeeze it under to the 5th fret and make that a natural 9 chord. I might actually bar that one, but depends on what I'm playing. And then we can just keep that root. So I use that shape a lot just so that I can kind of throw in that some either tension or color on that high note without much work. Yeah, right. So any questions on that? I don't think that's pretty and all these shapes can be moved around the fretboard, right? So I'm just going to go through them in G based off of our blues scale a few weeks ago. But what we can do is you can move these around. So we can go to C. Right. All right. So let's look at the next chord on there, which is going to that 4 chord in the key of C. So this works really well for the blues and for this is that same concept. I'm not putting the root and I'm not putting the 5th in the key of C. That would be C or G in the bass. I'm putting them up top. I'm putting the flat 7 B flat with my 2nd finger and the E natural with my 1st finger on the D string, playing that B flat and E, which is a tritone, putting that in the bass. So it sounds like this in the key of C. Key of C. And this will sound really great when the bass player is playing the root. So yeah. And that gives us our 3rd and 4th finger to play tons and tons of notes. So one of them is just to play the tritones, which is counting left to right, line 2, 3rd row here. So I'm just playing B flat, E, B flat, and E, which is just this. And that's a really hip sound. You can play that all over. So I love that tritone. Just stacking them up. So you basically on a mandolin, you're just going down a string in 1 fret over and over again. I see some questions. So this is a mandol guitar, and this is probably pretty out of tune, but it's a hybrid mandolin guitar with octave low strings. and unison high strings. From the great luthier Kirby Acock from my college days in North Carolina. So I use that quite a bit for some texture on records. And there's actually a lengthy on my Facebook. I just brought this back to life recently, and there's a lengthy post from one of the creators of it on my Facebook page where he talks about all the details. It's a really vibey, cool instrument, and there's some stuff on there of me playing it. I just got out of the workshop, so I'm still kind of getting acclimated to it, but it's going to be on the record I'm currently recording for sure. So we have this tritone putting that third up high. Now we can also use our third finger as a bar on the third fret of the A and E, and just that's a really pretty chord voicing. So that's a great voicing. And again, from there we have a whole nother finger. So we can, our pinky is there. So we could add some notes if we want. Now, going back to that first position, we have this really fun sus chord here by just adding the perfect fourth to the scale that we can get by moving our second finger to the third fret, or if your fingers are a little, you can take your first finger and just slide it up to the third fret on the B string. So this is that classic sus chord sound. Which is a little easier for me to just hammer on. I kind of like the sound more of hammering it on to my So that's a really great sound and really easy to get to from our basic mandolin shapes. So we were using our pinky to get that note. It's a little bit harder. This is a little bit easier, I think. Now, another chord that I like to use a lot in this key of G So not sure if we just went down here or not, or if I'm just lost a little bit of the feed there, but continue on here for just a second. And what I'm going to do is take my third finger and play this D natural on the 5th fret of the A string, and my first finger on the 3rd fret of that E, for just a really easy G chord. Now this doesn't have a third, so this could be major minor. And from here, we can hammer on from that 4th fret to that 5th fret to get a pretty cool sound. So that technique, I really like this chord shape. Now we can move it to the middle strings for a C, and we can move it to the low strings for an F. Now this also makes a really great double stop. Really nice shape, and you can use that hammer on to give it a little extra vibe. Now looking on the last line of the chord sheet here, we have oh nice, thanks man. I'm not sure if this is still going, but we just have a really nice C7 chord right here where we're taking second finger on the E, first finger on the B flat, third finger on the G. Now, if you have it in you, you can grab this pinky and get that C note, or that in the bass, or just let that G be in the bass. All right, so for you jazz guys out here, I thought I'd throw something in that I use quite a bit. And I'm basically just taking this shape with the root of the G. This is a G natural 9 flat 13 chord, which sounds complicated but pretty easy on the mandolin. And I'm just going to play the root and that flat 7. So I already like this sound. And I'm just playing that root and the dominant 7th on the first finger, and the 6th fret of the A and the 5th fret of the E. So we have and that can be a really great add some interesting color into your instead of just playing your G7. I use that quite a bit. I love having that G in the bass. So pretty interesting chord voicing. And if you don't like that root in the bass, you can obviously just admit it. And the last chord here is to check out this C sus chord. I was trying to come up with something that don't see played all the time for y'all out there, and that's with let's see here. Oh, it's really cutting out. And that is with my playing the C, G, C. It's a really nice C major chord. I'm using my first finger to get that sus. So again, another sus chord voicing that we're looking at today. And this one I think sounds really great. You can use a lighter pick. And hit it there. All right, y'all. Is there any questions about these chords before we head out? All right, so I'm going to play a little something, and I hope to see you guys soon. Thanks, Vintage Guitar, for having me. All right, y'all. I hope you get the last few minutes of that. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I hope to see you guys next time.